can't say that I was planning on making another server, but here we are, and oh well, servers are fun to build. I started running out of space on my main storage array, which is in a 45 drives HL15. I wanted to move some of the data sets of just, like old YouTube videos, that kind of stuff, move them off that main array, which is mostly full of Plex stuff now, and move that to another drive to free up space. That way I don't have to buy a whole whack of hard drives to upgrade the space. I built this using mostly parts I already had. I think the only thing I bought for this was the case and maybe like a little something or other in there, but mostly it was just the case. This case from Rack Choice is actually a pretty cheap case. It's under 150 bucks. I think it was 129, and it's a 2U, and it holds up to 9 3.5-inch drives, which is pretty impressive for a 2U standard case that you can just go buy, with the exception that if you use an MATX size board, you're limited to 7 drives, but I don't need that many. I think I just have 4 in there right now. Filtered front, even though you can't actually really get to the filter, you have to disassemble the whole case to get to this foam, so I don't really know what the point of that is. They probably should have put like a magnetic thing on the front. I have seen that on some cases, but this one, nope. Hopefully just vacuuming will clear it out for the most part. I mean, it's not a big deal. Most of the stuff that gets into the filters in my place is just cat fur. So power switches, USB 3 on the front. This case, like a lot of 2U cases, accepts an ATX power supply. I don't really recommend ever using ATX power supplies in these, because if you use one, it's pressed right up against the top, so you have to keep this area above it clear. It's just not worth it. Almost always you'll end up putting something above it at some point. So I personally don't think it's worth it to use ATX power supplies. You can use an SFX power supply. As you can see, I've just 3D printed a simple adapter to use Corsair SF750 power supply. Major overkill for this build, but that's what I had, so there we go. Inside, pretty straightforward, somewhat cramped layout. It's a surprisingly good case. The front of the case has 4 80mm fans. It comes with some included that are very quiet. They're not super high airflow, but they're perfectly good. They run on Molex connectors. Honestly, I could have just stuck with them. I just figured I had some spare 80mm fans from another build, so I just threw those in. Like I said before, it holds up to 9 drives, but you can't put in the bottom drives for these 2 slots. If you're using an MATX board like I am, I needed the extra PCI Express slots, so I'm kind of stuck. Currently, I am using 4 hard drives. These are all 14 terabytes. They were previously in my Plex server, but I retired them for 18s. For motherboard, I'm using an ASRock B550M Steel Legend, some random crucial, I think it's ECC 16 gig sticks, so 32 gigs. I'm not actually able to use ECC in this build because I'm using an AMD 5600G CPU. All the G series do not provide ECC support. You need to use a G Pro series chip to get ECC support, which I am not using. I didn't really see the need to swap it out, so whatever, no ECC. This is a dual slot M.2 card. I can bifurcate the 16X slot into 8x4x4. If you use some of the newer CPUs and like the desktop ones without the G, you can do 4x4x4x4, so you can have your quad card. But finding a quad card slot adapter that actually is low profile and actually goes to PCI Express 4.0 speeds is kind of hard to do. In fact, I don't even think the G series supports PCI Express 4.0, so it's not a huge deal. I just read data off this to edit video off of, and honestly, even at PCI Express 3.0 speeds and 25 gig Ethernet, doesn't really matter. You're still going so fast with 2 SSDs that no big deal. I'll survive. I'm using a Noctua low profile cooler. I was originally going to use just an Intel board because I happen to have an Intel board and Intel chip sitting out, But I was running into weird problems where I just couldn't get it to boot and whatever. It's not the defect with the Intel chips. It was just, I don't know, I think that motherboard is toast. So whatever, I'm going to skip that. And I just built an AMD system with some spare parts I have for a couple SSDs on the motherboard. Weirdly enough, I was running into a problem, and I can't remember if it was this specific board or one of the Intel boards I was trying, that I put in an Optane drive and it just wouldn't detect the Optane drive every second reboot. No idea why. I guess there's some weird compatibility issue with them, but I've never run into that before. I switched out to some Samsung drives in here now, working fine. I'm just using them as a metadata cache to speed up disk directories and that kind of stuff under True NAS. Not super needed, but why not? I had the onboard slots available. And yes, one of the things I'm going to do while I have this out is clean out this fan because there's plenty of crap in that heatsink. On this side, we've got our traditional rat's nest of cables, a bunch of SATA cables. The blue ones that I'm using are Sabrent ones because I have kind of given up on just the stock SATA cables. I've had bad luck with them over the years, just like the ones that come with motherboards and whatnot. For years they worked for me, but I ran into a string of bad luck with them, so I just kind of gave up and bought fancy Sabrent cables. As you can see, I have not moved over my M.2 drives from my existing NAS. This is an Intel X710 25 gig dual port card. I'm just going to be using one port on it. This one is from like fs.com, but it also has like a Dell part number, and I cannot flash new firmware to it, which is kind of annoying. I've been replacing my existing Mellanox ConnectX 4 cards with these newer Intel ones. These are from different vendors, so they have different heat sinks. I don't know why this one will not flash with new firmware. This actually isn't from fs.com, it's from Silicom. Again, don't know why it won't flash. I've tried the Dell flasher and the Intel flasher. They either don't read the card at all, or they read the card and just say there's no BIOS update available, even though it's way behind. It's like several versions behind. Both this Intel card, like genuine Intel apparently, and this one that is actually from fs.com, both of these updated no problem, but I don't know why this one won't. So these ones are going into the servers that are going to be on 24/7. This one is going into the server, which is going to be off almost all the time. One thing I'm trying with this motherboard, since I'm not going to be using this 24/7 and I want to just turn it on and off, it'll be nice to be able to turn it on or off automatically on a schedule using Home Assistant or something, so that I can run backups or press power whenever I need to get files off it. There are these little control boards. You can get generic ones, but these ones are made by, I think, CineLink. And these ones you can flash with Tasmota or ESP Home firmware. And this one just sits in a PCI Express slot. I didn't have a slot available, so I didn't use that one. And this one just sits inside the case and runs off USB power. You do have to do some like modifications to these because they're kind of funky in how they're wired. They kind of connected one of these to the wrong pin, but whatever. Basically, once this is all flashed, it can read the power LED and see if it's on, so that way it knows if the motherboard's on or off. And it can also trigger the power switch. And this will actually connect to the front panel switch, and then this connects to the motherboard with the setup I've got where I've reprogrammed it and removed the existing push button. Basically, from Home Assistant, you can just hit a button and it will turn on the power, or you can use the front panel switch. It'll work just fine. And Home Assistant can see if it's already on. When you have like a fully working setup, you can do something where with a script you can turn it on using this, and when it needs to turn off, you can connect via SSH, issue a command to safely shut down instead of just cutting the power. So you get a lot of control when you're using Home Assistant and stuff like that. It's not quite done. I don't have the LED power detection thing working yet. It's kind of weird. I don't know. These boards are pretty jank, but if you do enough rewiring on them, they're bound to work, right? Oh, one final thing. I do have an M.2 to PCI Express adapter card in here. Pro tip, they do make 1X PCI Express card adapters instead of 4X ones. So you can use one of the little 1x slots that are just sitting on your motherboard, probably not doing anything. And I just put a true NAS on this. So, you know, you don't need speed or anything. You can run it off an old SATA drive or whatever. Might as well put it on a NVMe drive because I had a spare one. And it's nice having the 1x slots get used because often I'm putting in high-speed networking or NVMe that needs high speed. With the little adapter, you can just use up all those spare slots. In fact, a lot of motherboards have 2 of them, so you can just throw in 2 and have redundancy for your boot drive. Another option is this board has a Wi-Fi M.2 slot right under here, which you run an adapter to get the PCI Express out of there, but it's a little more complicated because I'd have to run cables and stuff, so this is a bit neater. That's all I have for this motherboard and build. It's always nice to put together another server. I like building servers, and that's why seemingly every video of mine is me building a new server out of old server stuff that I already had or some other nonsense. But yeah, this one's actually been very helpful. It's really cleared up a lot of space. I think I freed up 12 terabytes of space by moving old files off to this drive.